Hi, and welcome to the Scientist Sage Sangha. This is a discussion and exploration group, and we meet every Tuesday night. And if people want to join us live, they can send a message to scientistsage, S-A-G-E, at gmail.com. And I will send a link for signups. You get emails saying what the topic is and when we start. So now we're going to talk about SHOULD, but it's an acronym. And SHOULD is an acronym by Dr. Russell Kennedy, and it really deals with anxiety. He's an anxiety expert. And I had a quote in the email that started with, "There are more things to alarm us than to harm us. And we suffer more in apprehension than reality." And I love the quote because I have been dealing with so much more anxiety with people and in myself. And it really speaks to me about all that anxiety that we work with. And yet people are reluctant to go into the causes and triggers of it. And the SHOULD method, what the acronym stands for, his particular method, is just really lovely at walking you in a real gentle way how to deal with these things. And he talks about anxiety, all anxiety being separation anxiety. And what he's talking about is that we separate from ourselves at some point. And for most of us, it is some point in childhood. And there's lots of reasons that we do that. Sometimes it's significant trauma, but even a number of lesser traumas or just daily exposure to difficult things that the people around us couldn't navigate, and so they couldn't teach us to navigate them. And it truly is a really good plan, actually, in our bodies. That they got wise and they're like, I don't think I can deal with this right now. It's not safe. There's nobody supporting me, so I think I'll wait. The trouble is that we never get back to it. And then it appears like anxiety. And generalized anxiety, the more generalized it is, the more likely that it is younger and repetitive. And so it just could be a parent that wasn't able to show up, or it could be a busy household that a kid doesn't feel secure in. It could be lots of things. So we don't need to know exactly what it is even. We just need to know how to address the anxiety. And the SHOULD method there, it really gets us down to more of some of those subtle things to release them. And I've been a therapist for about 37 years now. I was putting that down the other day for someone, and it scared me half to death. But, and what I found is that although talk therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy is really important and useful, if we don't get down to the body and releasing things from that, it doesn't take us what I call home to ourselves. And so when I looked at this and I thought, and this is so lovely because it really helps us wander through that difficult time. Because that when we can't get down there and it's stored in our body, and it's not like it's stored in neat little files like, oh, I had this experience, let me review it and it'll all be better. Not stored like that. It's more like a war-torn city, and there's craters, and they've grown over with flora and fauna, and we can't see them, so we fall into them. And things like letter boxes that have been blown up, and there's little scraps of paper that we have to put together, and it looks more like that. And so doing it in the way that he's suggesting is really useful. I talk about pottery shreds on the desert floor, like that there's been something there. And if you dig a little bit, you find more, and you can piece together things. So it's that kind of idea. But we can clean up these experiences and settle down the anxiety just by meeting whatever comes up, whenever it comes up. Now, that sounds like it's pretty simple. It's not. But you can learn to start to do it by the SHOULD method that Dr. Kennedy suggests. And it's just really simple. I'm going to run through it, give a few examples along the way. And then we'll just try it on something. So the first S is the first letter, and it's C. And it is actually practicing seeing ourselves when we were distressed. And we might actually get a picture of a younger version of us. We might not. We might get sort of almost like a caricature of something and, see ourselves like hiding behind something or see a child hiding behind something. And it's just about really seeing, how do we feel? Are we frightened? Are we hiding? Are we just stoic and, stone cold? What does it look like? And how old do I feel? This is a question I ask a lot in therapy with people. Just how old do you feel right now? Because I will see it happen to them. There'll be a change come over their face, and I'll go, oh, it looks like something is going on with you. How old do you feel? And they're surprised sometimes because they go, oh, wait, I feel like I'm 10 or I'm 18, or, they just know. And when we actually see what's going on, this is really the lead foot of the dance, just allowing ourselves to see. And it doesn't mean that I am not committing to sitting through the whole thing yet. I am just taking a look, just taking a peek. But it's useful to do that. And that really is the first piece of it. One of the things for me that was really helpful when I was going through my own work, um, when I, stopped doing things to make it not happen, was to just go, there is some reasonable explanation for the way that I am feeling and thinking and behaving. Because I would notice I would behave a little strangely, or all of a sudden, I'd walk into a room or see a person or see something, and I would have this big body response, very fearful, very stressful. Or I would suddenly be anxious about a spoon. And what I understood as I went along is that as I let those things come up, there really were reasonable explanations. I wasn't a crazy person. There were reasonable things that made me behave in that way. And sometimes it was really tangled up. But I can just say to myself, you know, I'm willing to see what's there and see how it unfolds. So it really is just that seeing first, where we get a step on things. And then the next part is about hearing. And I expand it a little further than he speaks about, but it really is hearing whatever's going on. And so I might hear something like an airplane outside, and that might trigger something. Or I might hear something that somebody else does not appear to be hearing. And sometimes that's a conversation. Somebody has said something to me, and maybe their tone of voice has triggered something in me. And I will think they've said something else. And they will like, no, that's not what I said. Here's what I said. And hearing how I talk to myself. So I might say to myself, well, don't be stupid. You shouldn't be anxious about getting a taxi or, whatever it is. But as soon as there's that odd disconnect, that separation, I know that there's something going on. And thinking of it as like an air bubble that has to come out of a container is really useful, that I'm not so attached to it. And I can just take a breath and really just listen, like I'm, listening to bird song in the backyard, or listening to see if, somebody is driving up in front of my house to visit me. I can just listen. I don't have to I don't have to figure it out like a detective. I can just show up and listen, just holding space for these kinds of things. And the next letter is O, which stands for open. And that's what we're talking about, opening up to whatever's there, whatever's there. And we might find out that we are fearful about something that we hadn't even thought about. Maybe we're fearful about somebody noticing that we have, a stain in our shirt, and it's a very odd thing that we're that worked up about it. Or it might be that we're fearful that that person is not going to be kind to us. And we may not have had any experience of them not being kind. There's just one of these moments. but just opening to whatever is there. And so this idea about suspending judgment, and that's one of the hardest things for lots of people, because I get really annoyed, particularly when it happens when I'm having a good time or when I'm busy. And I say, no, no, no. Just like when my children respond, I say, no, get away, get away. But I really try now to just be present, let it in, sit a minute. And I might say, okay, that's as much as I can do right now. Show up another day. But I can pay attention and just see if that other separated part of myself, younger or different or whatever, is got anything to say, and I'll take it in and then go back to what I'm doing. I don't have to stay there all day. I don't have to resolve anything. Just opening up, creating a little more space around it, because most of us have been in this sort of avoidance kind of thing. And so there's not much space. It's often crammed into a little thing like this. And when that is like that, it has a lot more energy to it. When it's open like this, it's like the old tale about putting a drop of ink in the ocean as opposed to a drop of ink in a cup of water. It's much more dispersed, and we can let it move through us and out of us much easier. So the next one is you, and not you like pointing at you, but you as in understanding. And part of this is this idea of, okay, there is something to understand here. It's not just random craziness that I'm experiencing. There's really something underlying this, and I want to understand. And what he suggests is to actually say the words, I will try to understand your experience. And just saying that often opens doors that has been shut for a very, very long time. And so it can be really tremendously useful. And again, we're talking about separation anxiety. So if there's been parts of ourselves that have been sort of shut off and put away, then we have anxiety about that. Just like any person or child that we, just sort of push away, they keep trying to get our attention. And so that drives up more anxiety. So little, smaller things that have happened can actually grow into bigger things the longer they're shoved away when they come up. And I'm a firm believer in that we get the information we need from our bodies and our psyches when we need it, when it's useful for us, when we can handle it, when we can move forward with it. And if we can't, it goes back down and we get a little less free. But if we can open up and literally try and understand developing compassion for ourselves at whatever is going on in our lives at the moment or previously, then we can create this other space for transformation. And I really, this level of anxiety in the last few years has grown so substantial because we were locked away in rooms by ourselves, with ourselves, only ourselves. That created a lot of stress for people. And it was, we didn't necessarily choose that and have all the skills and time to pursue what was really going on with us. So it's still flowing. I was talking to a group of people last night. We were talking about how can we just stay with ourselves when things that come up. And we were looking at the idea of freedom and what we might have thought freedom stood for in the past and how that might have been problematic for us in the future. And as we were doing that, different people would have these moments of like, oh, now I understand why I'm doing what I'm doing because I thought freedom meant this thing. And it might be that I want to do whatever I want whenever I want to. And that urge that isn't looked at can certainly cause some disruption in people's lives. But as someone that was heavily controlled as a younger person or a child, that can be a real sticky thing to want that kind of freedom all the time and then try and be in relationships or jobs, working for other people, things like that. And sitting with those things and understanding them and letting the energy of the anxiety that had previously built up to release can open up a new idea. of how I want to be in my life and maybe how freedom specifically would look for me. So this idea here is really just to be open to all those things and have a very specific routine to do. Because I find when people are just opening up to something that's not, surprising them or disturbing them, or it's an old habit that they can't seem to break, that they can get stuck or be going back and forth a lot. They let themselves in, and then it's overwhelming, and they go away, or they come in and they feel like there has to be an answer or fix, and then they shut down. So it can be all choppy. But his has a really nice flow to it. You just do some check-ins, and then you can let go. Just this idea of ongoing understanding, not I'm going to solve all of this right now. But what happens then is so much anxiety moves out of the body, and it moves out of tense shoulders, or lots of recurring kinds of illnesses, even things like allergies and small injuries, things like that, headaches, all sorts of things. So this is a really useful process to try out, and I'd encourage you to really understand the base part is taking in compassion. And if I can't have compassion, I may judge myself as other people have judged me before. I got a lot of negative feedback because I was never able to pay very good attention in my life. And so when something happens like that, I start having that negative feedback coming from me to myself. And I really have to stop and go, oh, here's that pattern again. Yeah. I want to sit and see what's happening. Oh, yeah, this feels bad. And I am afraid that someone else, those, uh, those people that we never know actually who they are, but those people will think this badly about me. But I beat them to the punch because I'm thinking badly about it myself. And if I can come in there with compassion, I can start to shift how I deal with that. So, like I say, this is not about doing your own trauma therapy on your own. This is about sticking your toe in the water of those anxieties that you have, particularly repeated ones. There, you can take them apart thread by thread. We don't have to jump in and have a final solution, because the final solution is really when I get relaxed with what comes up, and I will be able to maintain compassion. I recently started working with in a treatment center with people that are, coming in for the first time with addiction issues and putting down their substances, and it took me back to a whole bunch of things that I had gone through in the very early stages like that, and I get another brand new chance to deal with any leftovers from that point. So it's not like we're done. There'll be new chances to get freer and freer all the time. And I hope you can pick them up and run with them. So we're going to slide into a short little meditation. So for the people that are with me, feel free to go off screen, put your feet up, whatever you like. And for those that are watching this later, be as comfortable as you want to. Close your eyes, leave them open, whatever feels really comfortable. And I invite you to just bring to mind just your body today. Is there an anxiety somewhere? You might find it, a tight chest, or shoulders that are scrunched forward, or just some pain in a leg. And I encourage you to breathe into that area. And one way of seeing is just to be asking, to be shown, is there something I need to see here? And you might actually see an actual picture. You might have an idea of something. And you might find a change in how you feel, a change in your age, a change in your perception. We're just allowing ourselves to see whatever's there. And maybe there's nothing. Or maybe it's too murky to really make out. That's seeing too. And then hearing. And this could be hearing of sounds. You could hear yourself. You could hear someone. And just keep opening to those processes of seeing and hearing. And even releasing, figuring anything out. Just being a witness, an observer, opening to sensations in your body. Keeping space with difficult feelings that might come up. And if the feelings feel uncomfortable, you might take a step back and just survey them. Like someone taking notes on the flora and fauna in a forest. Just what's there? Where is it? And keep breathing and just imagine releasing as you see things. Just take them in and release. You don't have to figure anything out. You might come to realization or just release. There's no specified best outcome here. And as you experience this, I encourage you to talk to yourself. It's not crazy, it's actually very supportive. And you might say, I will try and understand this experience. Or I'm open to be shown. Or even I just want to know more about the source of my anxiety. And just take a few more breaths to settle into your body. And I encourage ending any exploration like this with just thank you. Thank you. thanking yourself, your present self, for having the courage to open up, and thanking your other selves or the universe or whatever you might imagine is delivering information to you. Just thank you. And you may want to take a note or two after you come back, or you just let this be. So take a few more deep breaths and come back as you please. Keeping that compassionate, gentle approach. There's always an escape hatch. And to the people that are with me tonight, we'll join for discussion in a moment. And for the people that are watching later, I hope this has provided some interest and value to you. Thank you so much for joining us. I am with you. You are with me. Blessed be. Good night.